In a world filled with stories, there are those that stand out, leaving an indelible mark on our history. Today, we embark on a journey to uncover one such tale, a story of courage, change, and enduring impact. In the early 20th century, the world was thrown into turmoil as nations clashed in a conflict that would reshape our planet. But how did this global cataclysm alter the course of history? Join us in today's video as we delve into the profound and lasting effects of World War I. World War I, which started in 1914 and ended in 1918, was a massive conflict that involved many countries from around the world. It all began with a spark, a single event in Europe that ignited a chain reaction of battles and conflicts. Soldiers on both sides fought in trenches, which were long, narrow ditches in the ground. These trenches stretched for miles and were often muddy and filled with water. Life in the trenches was tough and challenging. One of the things that made World War I different from earlier wars was the use of new and powerful weapons. These included tanks, airplanes, and chemical gases. They changed the way wars were fought and made them more destructive. After 4 long years of fighting, the war finally came to an end. Leaders from different countries came together to sign a peace treaty called the Treaty of Versailles, which officially ended the war and tried to make sure it wouldn't happen again. But even though the war ended, its effects were long-lasting. The lessons learned from World War I still shape the way countries work together and try to avoid conflict today. The redrawing of the borders was a massive change that occurred. In the wake of the bloodshed and devastation of World War I, a momentous transformation was underway: the redrawing of national borders. The Treaty of Versailles, along with other peace agreements, served as the architects of this geopolitical upheaval. The mighty empires of Europe were in the midst of a seismic shift. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, a sprawling dominion covering Central and Eastern Europe, crumbled into a patchwork of independent states, each with its own identity and destiny. Similarly, the Ottoman Empire, which had spanned 3 continents, met its end, paving the way for the emergence of modern-day Turkey. In the East, the Russian Empire underwent a revolution, leading to the establishment of a communist government. Meanwhile, in the heart of Europe, the German Empire faced its own dissolution. From these ruins, new nations emerged. Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia were among the countries born from the ashes of empires, each eager to chart its course in a changed world. World War I led to such destruction and loss of lives. The war, unprecedented in its brutality, exacted a staggering toll on both soldiers and civilians, plunging the world into a dark abyss of suffering and loss. The statistics are chilling. Millions of lives were extinguished as a result of the conflict, and countless others were left maimed or traumatized. The war's horrors, etched into the collective memory, continue to serve as a haunting reminder of the capacity for devastation within the arsenal of modern warfare. The battlefields, characterized by trenches that stretched for miles, were often muddy, disease-ridden quagmires where young men faced unimaginable horrors. The world watched in disbelief as the carnage unfolded. World War I was not just a conflict of soldiers and battles. It was a war that exacted a heavy toll on the world's economies. The enormous cost of financing the war left nations grappling with unprecedented levels of debt, and as the war came to an end, it unleashed a wave of economic hardships. In the aftermath, inflation ran rampant in various countries, eroding the value of money and savings. The war had drained resources and disrupted trade, leaving scars on economies that would take years to heal. Amidst this turmoil, an economic giant was emerging: the United States. The war marked the beginning of its ascent as a global economic powerhouse. The U.S. provided loans and essential goods to the war-torn nations of Europe, not only aiding in their recovery, but also solidifying its position as a key player on the world stage. World War I was a seismic event in the realm of politics, reshaping the global order in profound ways. In the wake of the war, the Russian Revolution of 1917 sent shockwaves across the world. It led to the establishment of a communist government in Russia under Lenin and later Stalin, fundamentally altering the global balance of power. Meanwhile, in Germany, the war's bitter aftermath brought about political instability and economic turmoil. It laid the groundwork for a turbulent era as the nation grappled with the consequences of defeat, humiliation, and the punishing terms of the Treaty of Versailles. Out of this turmoil emerged Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, capitalizing on despair and discontent. This ominous rise would ultimately lead to the horrors of World War I, illustrating how the political ramifications of World War I cast a long and ominous shadow over the 20th century. In the crucible of World War I, the landscape of warfare was forever altered as innovation and desperation converged to redefine the battlefield. This was a war that not only tested the courage of soldiers, but also the boundaries of technology. Among the most iconic innovations were tanks, hulking machines that traversed the muddied battlefields, rendering trenches and barbed wire obsolete. These armored giants marked a new era of mechanized warfare. Yet, innovation was not confined to land. Chemical warfare emerged as a horrifying and deadly tactic, with the introduction of toxic gases like mustard gas. This unleashed a new kind of terror upon the soldiers, who were often ill-prepared for such attacks. Firearms also saw significant improvements. Bolt-action rifles and semi-automatic pistols became more common, increasing the firepower of infantry. But it wasn't just in weaponry that World War I spurred innovation. Aviation saw remarkable progress as rickety biplanes evolved into sophisticated fighters and bombers. Radio communication, initially used for military coordination, found its way into civilian life, revolutionizing communication. In the aftermath of the Great War, as the world recoiled from the horrors of World War I, a beacon of hope emerged: the League of Nations. It was a bold experiment in international diplomacy and a noble endeavor to prevent future conflicts. The League of Nations was founded on the belief that nations could resolve their differences through dialogue and cooperation rather than through war. Its mission was to promote peace, security, and justice on a global scale. However, the League faced challenges from the start. Not all nations joined, and some that did were hesitant to take meaningful action when conflicts arose. Its ability to enforce its decisions was limited. From its ashes rose the United Nations, established in 1945. The United Nations built upon the lessons of the League of Nations, aiming to create a more effective international organization for maintaining peace and promoting cooperation among nations. Today, the United Nations continues to play a central role in global diplomacy, humanitarian efforts, and conflict resolution. World War I marked a tectonic shift in the balance of power and the emergence of a new global player. Before the war, the old European empires held sway over much of the world, but the conflict shattered their dominance. The once mighty empires of Austria-Hungary, Germany, and the Ottoman Empire crumbled, leaving a void that needed to be filled. In the midst of this upheaval, the United States stepped onto the world stage as a pivotal player. It wasn't just the might of its military, but also its economic strength and industrial capacity that made it a force to be reckoned with. The war's legacy reverberated through the decades that followed, shaping the geopolitical landscape. The United States, having tasted the responsibilities of global leadership, continued to exert its influence, particularly during the tumultuous years of the 20th century. The balance of power had shifted, and new alliances and rivalries formed. This reconfiguration of the world order would set the stage for future conflicts, diplomatic negotiations, and international cooperation. As we journeyed through the annals of history, we witnessed the profound changes wrought by World War I. Borders were redrawn, empires crumbled, and the world emerged forever transformed. The echoes of this conflict still resonate with us today. In the wake of destruction, lessons were learned, and institutions like the United Nations were born to foster peace and prevent such devastation from happening again. The war's impact on society, culture, and technology is a reminder of humanity's ability to adapt and rebuild. As we conclude our journey, let us reflect on the enduring legacy of World War I. It reminds us that even in our darkest hours, we have the capacity to strive for a brighter future, one where peace, unity, and understanding prevail. Thank you for joining us on today's video. May history's lessons guide us toward a world filled with hope and harmony. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for more.